going on, everyone? It is the first episode here of iMPACT iNTACT. I am Josh. That is CJ. We are here. I don't even know why the fuck we're here, to be honest. But it is the Hive. It is the first piece of content on the Hive as well. So welcome to the Hive. If you don't know who I am, I created the Hive. I'm the founder of the Hive. And CJ was one of the first people I got for the Hive. But we'll talk about the Hive as we kind of go along here. But CJ, this is your first kind of dip into the podcasting, I guess. I wouldn't say wrestling media world because you've done wrestling media before, but like on camera, you know, other than literally the watch parties that we do over on Twitch for the Hive. Am I wrong to say you've never done this before?
No, you were the first.
Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely?
It's wonderful. It is.
But give us a little rundown, CJ, as we're going to get into things here of who you are, and then we'll kind of talk about what this show is going to be.
If you are watching this, you probably are familiar with wrestling, obviously, so you might know Fightful. I covered wrestling there for about 6 or 7 years, I would say. And then I left to go to CBS to cover more like college football, college basketball, NFL, NBA. And now I write for Sports Illustrated and the Sporting News, covering the exact same things I was doing for CBS.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. If you don't know who I am, I've been doing wrestling content creation for about 7, nearly 8 years. I've done a whole bunch of different stuff, but probably mostly what you know me from is Twitch. Hang out on Twitch a lot, play a lot of wrestling games, but we're not here to stroke our own egos yet. We're here to talk about some other stuff because what this show is going to be is all about TNA. So a little brief rundown of my background in TNA. I was probably more of a TNA kid than I was a WWE kid. I watched both, obviously, but I probably watched more TNA, at least for a good chunk of years throughout my childhood. But I love TNA, and I've always kind of had this zone of like, I'd like to talk about the stuff I watched as a child with TNA way more than I do. I never really have had an outlet to talk about it. So that's where this kind of idea spawned from. Then obviously bringing in CJ to the Hive to do some other stuff as well. And I was like, well, you know, maybe CJ wants to do this as well. But while my experience with TNA is I have a lot of great memories with TNA as a kid. CJ is a little bit different.
This was my first watch of this episode that we're about to talk about here in a minute. And I don't know if I've ever watched a TNA episode live when it happened originally. But I have gone back, obviously, and watched a bunch since then.
Yeah, right. So you're, I guess it's different. It's not as nostalgic, I guess you could say, because I was in the trenches with TNA, all the good, the bad, and the indifferent. I was in it. At some point, I think here it was actually easier to watch TNA than it was to watch Raw. Weirdly enough, so just where it aired and when it aired and what time it aired and whatever. So,
Sure.
But yeah, so basically this show is going to review like the biggest moments that you know from TNA Impact and pay-per-views, but we're going to review the whole show. So if it's like, I don't know, you know, when Gail Kim and Awesome Kong main evented Impact for the first time, we'll watch that whole show. Like when Booker T did that commentary spot that went viral, we're going to watch the whole show. So I wanted to kind of get into the mindset of starting off with a very, perhaps probably the most, better or worse, the most infamous show in TNA history. The very first time that TNA went head-to-head with WWE on a Monday night. Now, my brain, I was thinking January 4th, they did this for a few months and then it went away. But this is actually just a special. They didn't actually go head-to-head with Monday Night Raw consistently until March. They only went for a few months. But this was just a 3-hour special that took place on January 4th, 2010. Now, before we talk about TNA, would be reminiscent to not talk about Monday Night Raw. Of course, that was the infamous Raw that they loaded up with Bret Hart returning for the first time in however long to shake hands with Shawn Michaels, and they started like the Vince and Bret program for Mania that year. So, I mean, WWE loaded up their show. I mean, to have Bret Hart for the first time since the screw job.
Right.
is probably a pretty big deal. So they knew what they were kind of getting themselves into. We'll run down, the TNA show and stuff in a second and get into things. But yeah, I don't know why in my brain I was like, oh, this is just when they started going head to head on Monday nights, but that's not actually the case. Maybe they were waiting to see what the rating was, and then they kind of went from there. But all in all, I do remember the build up to this. I'm not sure if you remember the build up to this of like, they had like a Dixie Carter held like a press conference like a few months before and was like, Hulk Hogan is coming to TNA. And regardless of anything, I guess it's a pretty big deal. I mean, Hogan really had only appeared for, other than WCW, had only appeared for WWE in the last decade before this. So I guess it's a pretty big deal. But TNA had a lot of that. For someone that watched TNA a lot, they had a lot of like, this signing is going to change the TNA. This signing is going to change. And it, hey, I mean, TNA's still standing to this day and age. So I guess you can't say it didn't work. It's just the way they went about it was very weird. But do you remember any of the build up to January 4th?
I remember the press conference, but that's about it.
Yeah,
I
right.
do remember
that. Do you remember Bret Hart coming back?
Oh, no, that, yes. I'm at the IMPACT side.
No, yeah, but both, just in both, you remember Bret.
I remember the Bret situation.
Because I believe that kicked off Raw that night. It was like Shawn and Bret. Yeah, like, and they did the tease where, was Shawn going to shake his hand? Were they going to hug? Yeah, and then obviously they just hugged and everything was fine. But Raw really stacked up their lineup, and I don't think in all TNA did a terrible rate. Well, obviously they didn't do a terrible rating because they ended up going to Monday nights for a brief amount of time. But whatever. So TNA, we're going to kick off this show. Now, just to kind of give you an idea of how this show is going to work, me and CJ are very different with the way we prepare for things. I am a very just bullet point person. I'm like, this was good. I liked that DDT. CJ is like a novel writer, which is good though, because we can meet in the middle, because you can kind of run everything down, and then we can, and then I can just chime in with like, that was a great suicide dive, and that was about it.
Love that punch.
So yeah, I mean, watching this show and just the intro and everything like that, the song, I haven't watched old Impacts in quite a while, and it just brought back a lot of like, I remember just sitting down and watching this. So TNA for me used to air on a Saturday night at like 9 p.m. That's just when we got it. But this was when I was like, 13 years old, 12 years old, something like that. Like, it wasn't like I was deep in the trenches of internet wrestling. So like it didn't really matter if it didn't air live, because I wasn't really going to like see the results beforehand. So it used to air, I believe we were a week behind for a long time, and then it just caught up 1 week. But Saturday nights it used to air. I don't remember what channel it was on here, but I do remember watching this show very, very legally live at the same time as Raw. I remember having 2 screens. I remember not going to school that day, because obviously it aired when I'm in the daytime here. So I remember not going to school that day and watching this, but the intro aired. Do you have any memories of the Impact intro? You probably don't, do you?
Oh, when I turned it on, it was a new experience.
Yeah, it was, what a time. But this show is, even in the opening, it's heavily focused on Hogan is coming to TNA for the first time. He's going to be, I noticed something throughout this show. Obviously, we'll talk about each segment as they go through, but I don't know why I didn't remember this. Obviously, it happened a lot, but they didn't really refer to this show as TNA Impact. They're like, I'm going to be in the Impact Zone. I'm going to be in the Impact Zone.
Impact Zone.
The Impact Zone. Yes. The Impact Zone. The Impact Zone. But the pyro goes off, the little sparkler pyros. I will say soundstage wrestling is always tough, but they made it look like it was packed in there. I will say that. It looked cool.
I was going to say, I remember 2010. I might have been living in Florida at the time, so I drove past where they taped this quite a bit. It was Universal, right?
Yeah,
the Impact Zone.
Yeah, the Impact Zone was in Universal.
I'm pretty sure in one of the segments we talk about later with Mick Foley, you can see the roller coasters and stuff in the background. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but they pack it in there, don't they? No, I did.
No, I was gonna. Yes, they absolutely do. That was my point. It seems a lot smaller when you're like around it, but they made a great job on TV to look good.
And it didn't sound bad either. Like, sometimes sound stages can sound a little bit like, what's going on here? But like, it sounded pretty good. Like, I was pretty again, it's been a while since I watched this, but I'm like, I mean, when you're watching two shows at once, I'm trying to get in that zone of like, you're watching Raw with a packed out, 10,000
Right.
seat arena versus this. I mean, I don't know what the logic was, but they stayed in the impact zone for a long time. Eventually, they went on the road a little bit, but I don't know. You'd think especially with Bischoff and Hogan coming in, that would probably be one of the first things that'd be like, why are we in a soundstage? Like, let's get out of here. But for whatever reason, they didn't. But yes, this show there were pyro going crazy and going off. And this was the premise of the show. Hulk Hogan will be here tonight. Hogan is in the impact zone for the first time. It's going to change TNA forever. That was the kind of oomph behind it. But I mean, hindsight is 2020. But we'll talk about Hogan when we get there because we kick things off. What do we start with on this show, CJ?
At least I'm assuming it's the same for you, but we kind of saw Amazing Red walking into the Steel Asylum to start, and then Shelly, Sabin, Consequences, Creed, Homicide, Jay Lethal, Kiyoshi, Suicide, and Red. It was only about 4 or 5 minutes long, and then Kiyoshi held down Amazing Red, and Homicide just clocked him with a crowbar, and then they called that the match, I guess.
So we should note, by the way, we are watching on the TNA Plus version, so there's about 20 to 30 minutes cut out of this. For whatever reason, they don't have the whole episode. This was a 3-hour special. Yeah. So I don't know why the TNA Plus version is like this. So a lot of our entrances are cut. There's like some things that are cut. We'll talk about that as we go through the show. We don't want to kind of spoil everything as we go along here. But the Steel Asylum. This your first experience ever with the Steel Asylum?
No, because once I've gone back, like just randomly watching it, I've seen it. I didn't see this specific one before, but I have seen a Steel Asylum.
So basically, for anyone that doesn't know what a Steel Asylum is, it's this big red dome with like a hole in the middle. And the idea is to climb the dome and go out through the hole in the top. It's an interesting concept. I don't really remember hating or loving it as a child. I probably lean towards more loving it as a child because it looked really stupid. And as a kid, you're probably like, yeah. But as an adult, I'm like, this is kind of silly. I don't know when the last time they had a Steel Asylum match was in TNA. I'm not an active watcher of TNA anymore, but I'm pretty certain they haven't done it in a while. But there's a lot of bodies in here, and they're all trapped in the ring. It's messy, and I don't mean to sound like just a piece of crap, but it is messy, and it was just like, why was there a I was really confused by the DQ. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, there's a DQ in this thing? It's a giant
I almost lost my mind.
But Homicide goes ham with this. It was like an extendable baton. Like, it was like, what is this?
It was like it almost looked like a crowbar kind of.
I don't know what the hell it was, but he went hard, and then the drums hit my desk to the top, and the crowd didn't really react. And I was like, well, this is weird because he was here like 4 or 5 years ago with that music. But then he come through the crowd, and the crowd started going crazy. But Jeff Hardy arrived here in Impact, TNA, on this big edition. I believe he would have just finished up with WWE a few months before. And he was we're not going to go down this rabbit hole, but he was in a pretty bad place in his life at this time. If you do the timeline math on this, he wasn't in a great state. And we're going to talk about Jeff Hardy on this show because there's some infamous stuff that happens with Jeff Hardy in TNA that we will cover. But I mean, he got a nice reaction, and he climbed the shot of him sitting on top of the dome looked pretty cool. It was an interesting, I mean, at this stage, you got to remember that on the other channel, Brett and Sean are in the ring, and you're having a 4-minute match ending in a DQ, starting off your show. It's an interesting choice.
Yeah, well, like I said, I went in completely blind, so you remember more than I do, obviously. I was like, oh, a nice 7-person like cage match to start. This is something good. And then the DQ absolutely I have no idea what to even say about that. I was like, oh, he hit him with his crowbar or whatever. I'm so used to WWE steel cage matches. where you can do literally anything. So they called the no contest. I was so confused. And then Homicide climbs out through the hole.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell's going on here? And then Jeff Hardy, I didn't know that theme song. So I was like, who the hell is this about to
I
be?
didn't.
So I was with the crowd. I'm like, who the hell? And then Jeff Hardy did what Jeff Hardy does best, as he did when he debuted in AEW. Matt Hardy's getting his ass beat. He starts twerking on the stage. Jeff Hardy just leisurely walks through the crowd, high fives a few people. Then he's like, all right, now I'll help you.
He also
really
got
funny.
caught when he was getting over the railing. He got caught in someone's shirt or something, and I was like, oh my
Yeah.
god. But I mean, he once he was on the stage, he was getting a pretty dope reaction. I mean, there's people going crazy. I mean, Jeff Hardy. I mean, it is kind of crazy with Jeff Hardy. Like, I don't remember a time ever seeing Jeff Hardy what it wasn't like just over. It was just always over. It was just
in every
crazy.
company too.
Yeah,
AEW, TNA, WWE.
Everyone loves it. No matter what you think about Jeff Hardy, I think we've all had a love for Jeff Hardy at some point in our wrestling journeys. He's pretty great. So, I mean, in a sense, a pretty cool idea to have Jeff Hardy come back in your first segment. But an interesting choice going with the DQ after 4 minutes. I don't really have anything to call about that match because I don't really remember any spots, because I just remember being like, 4 minutes for an opening contest is interesting. Now, was it in this match or was it just after where they showed the limo being escorted?
It was right after. Right after Hardy is celebrating on top of the asylum. Everybody's going crazy. We cut to like a live shot, I guess. I probably wasn't live, but of a motorcade going through with a limo, and that's Hulk Hogan arriving to the Impact Zone.
They were, I mean, bless their hearts, they were making sure that you knew that Hogan was going to be on this damn show. It was talked about a lot. He's kind of the centerpiece for this entire episode of Impact from start to finish. So, what is the is there a segment in between that I'm missing out after the limo, or do we go straight into the next match? I can't remember.
Limo right into the Knockouts title.
So Knockouts Championship, it is the TNA Knockouts Champion Tara, which for WWE fans you'd know as Victoria, against ODB, which stands for One Dirty Bitch, which is fair. Can relate. Run us through this match, CJ.
I have written down here just a bunch of like back and forth. Tara goes to the Widow's Peak. ODB rolls her up for the 3 count. That's pretty much it. It was about 3 minutes, I think.
Yeah, another short match. She held the tights, I believe, of Tara to get the win. I believe they said, I could be wrong, and I don't know if you noted this down or not, but I believe Mike Tenay and Taz, who are on commentary, by the way, who I don't hate as a commentary team. Some people didn't love that, but I actually liked Taz and Tenay together.
I love Taz.
Yeah, and I get it. A lot of TNA traditionalists and loyalists love Don West. I get it. He was a great thing, but this was rest in peace. But this was a great team. But they did mention that I think Tara only won the TNA Knockouts Championship back at Final Resolution, which I know exactly when that happened, but I know it was in December. That's all I know from memory is that pay-per-view happened in December every year. So Tara was only the Knockouts Champion for a cup of tea. So it is what it is, but ODB gets the win, and then Tara attacks ODB after the match and then puts her tarantula poison on her. I don't know if you know this, but Victoria has done a lot of interviews in the past of how petrified she was of that spider. So
I've seen that.
Yeah, I always try to take note of when she's holding the tarantula, she's always like hella shaky, which I would be too.
Yep.
It's a giant ass fucking spider. I don't want to fucking touch that. So
I don't do spiders or snakes.
No, I don't like it. So, she puts it on ODB. So I guess the baby face got the comeuppance, even though she lost her championship. But there was really nothing to that match. And I will talk about the knockouts a lot because a big reason why I watched TNA is because I've always been a fan of women in wrestling, but they were, for the most part, killing it on a pretty regular basis. The knockouts were doing a lot more than what WWE was offering at the time with the Divas, especially during that. That may have been like right in a pretty dark spot for women's wrestling in WWE. Like they had really pushed away from anything like wrestling in their programming. There wasn't a lot of like, I don't want to say there wasn't big stars because there was girls there that they obviously pushed, but it was just a different time. But TNA were doing a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about the knockouts a lot because there's a lot of moments in TNA history where they kind of, at least in an American or a North American stage, women were not doing on television at all. So, You know, this match wasn't necessarily bad. It was fast.
That's the theme of the night, by the way, except for the main event. A big theme of the night.
Mm-hmm. What's up next? What's after this Knockouts Championship match?
We have another big star making his arrival in the Impact Zone. Ric Flair comes in and then enters AJ Styles' dressing room before we cut to another segment.
Ric Flair is here. Yep. He had been in TNA before at that point. I'm pretty certain. I don't believe this was his first time. Memory.
They said something like returns. They made sure like you knew it wasn't his first time.
Yeah, I do remember Flair being there just after he kind of retired in WWE after the Shawn match. He did wrestle in TNA. I'm pretty certain. So,
in a very interesting match against Jay Lethal.
So he was here, for whatever reason.
Yes.
For whatever reason. That's kind of a
big star.
We're going to talk about a segment soon that's like, this is just,
oh my,
they're just here, but whatever. We'll move on from the Ric Flair segment.
Mick Foley trying to get in the Impact Zone. He says, I work here, by the way, to Christy Hemme. He said he doesn't care that he was...
Christy Hemme was great in her role.
You see her quite a bit in this.
Yeah.
He says he doesn't plan on interrupting the proceedings between Hogan and Dixie Carter tonight, and he says he just wants to be there for history. But then security stops him before we go to another segment.
Great. So Foley is obviously they're playing on the history between Mick Foley and Hulk Hogan. They've obviously had words that have been said in public settings over the years. So this is the rivalry that we got going into this Impact, is that Foley can't get in the building because he just wants to talk to Hogan, and Hogan, whatever, for whatever reason, that happened. I have nothing else to add to that segment.
It happened. Well, now we have an interesting one coming up. Crystal and Bobby Lashley are in the ring. Again, I don't know if it feels like something was cut in between this on the broadcast.
Yeah.
For our version, because you just randomly see that and then Crystal's yelling on the mic. She said it's the biggest night in TNA history, and she calls Lashley the biggest star in MMA and wrestling. But then she says Lashley requests his release immediately because he wants to go back to MMA because wrestling is filled with inbred and toothless degenerates.
I mean, I can't disagree. Like
I was clapping. I was like,
all right, Crystal Lashley, you do your thing. We'll talk more about this later on because she's on the show again later, so I don't really want to spoil what happens later. But it does feel like something was cut in between, or at least their entrance was cut in this TNA.
Because it went right from Foley, like security saying you're not allowed in here. Black screen, Lashley, Crystal's yelling on the mic.
So what I did, because I was like, maybe the TNA Plus version is just like marked up on TNA Plus. So they've actually uploaded this episode of TNA to their YouTube, and I was like, let me just click on their YouTube to see if it's like just an issue with something on Plus. It's not. It's exactly the same on YouTube. So
they just copy and paste it.
It's just cut for whatever. I really don't understand why the TNA Plus version is not the full broadcast, but it is what it is. But it was a fine promo. There was really, again, we'll talk about it more later when the other segment happens. So I guess we can move on.
Weird note though, it was a 3-hour broadcast. It was less than 2 hours on Impact Plus. Yeah. So they cut quite a bit of stuff out.
It was like an hour and a half almost. I think it was like an
hour 35, I think.
So they cut, but I mean, with commercials still, it was probably nearly a solid hour when you think about it over a 3-hour show of commercials. So it probably was like 30 to 40 minutes cut. But basically on our version, well, on the TNA Plus version, I should say, pretty much all of the entrances are cut. It's a couple of segments and a match that's cut as well. But I mean, nothing like too important.
No. And speaking of something that people might not consider important, we see the beautiful people playing strip poker next up on the.
And this isn't like
not much here.
The beautiful people. This is an odd version of the beautiful people. So probably the most people remember the beautiful people as Velvet Sky, Angelina Love. Then they added in Madison Rain. But this version of the beautiful people is Velvet Sky, Madison Rain, and the great Lacey Von Erich. Lacey Von Erich, I have very big memories of because I just remember her being not too good at the wrestlings. She wasn't great at wrestling.
No,
but
she wasn't. She wasn't quite Becky Lynch, was she?
Not quite. Maybe one day. But
she'll get there.
But I guess the idea. So I'm going to run down this segment because it's actually quite fucking ridiculous. So,
Oh, it is.
so Velvet Sky is talking to the cameraman, and she says, "Come with me, cameraman, unless your camera melts," or something like that.
Yep.
And then they go in and they're playing poker. Now, Velvet says something along the words. Again, I'm paraphrasing. You may have it written down, but I do not. But she said something along the lines of, "We know what gets ratings on television these days," and of course they were referring to their assets. I guess you could say, yeah, their assets. But you know, they were like playing poker, and Lacey was like, "I'll have 5 cards," and they were like, "You can't do that. It's poker." And then Madison was like, "No, you just let her do it." And then she lost in her hand. And they don't have anything to bet with. So, by the way, it took no twisting of the arm for Lacey Von Erich to take off that jacket. They didn't even get the sentence out. She was just taking it off before they're like, "Let's play strip poker." She was basically naked before they even said that. So, they're playing strip poker. The beautiful people, I don't know why, for whatever reason, they're always such a solid memory in my brain of being a child.
Me too,
watching
for someone that didn't watch very long either.
They were just, I feel like they were very like consistently on television. Whatever they're doing, it doesn't matter if they were wrestling or doing stuff like this. They had screen time. So I mean, props to them. Obviously wrestling's changed a lot, but it was a different time. Even in 2010. Somehow this show is 15 years old, by the way, which is fucking crazy to think about. But
so
of course, that's not the last time we're going to talk about that segment.
Unfortunately, not because of them. I'm saying unfortunate, by the way, not because of them.
No, well,
we unfortunately see them later.
There's a lot more of them, so we'll talk about that as the show progresses.
We sure will. Sean Waltman and Scott Hall now try to get to the impact zone again. Security says no. They say we're not Mick Foley. We're just going to beat your ass, and then they walk in.
Wait, you were watching the wrong show. Were you watching a 1996 episode of WCW Nitro, or were you watching?
I was, unfortunately.
Did you click over to WCW Nitro Plus? Of course.
Yeah, I had two screens on. And I got mistaken. I apologize.
No, but Sean Waltman and Scott Hall are here.
They are.
We're going to talk about them a lot in this fucking segment.
Hulk Hogan time, Josh.
Oh, and Hulk his Hogan entrance, by the way, not cut on the TNA Plus.
They made sure that, I think they cut about 6 other segments to make sure that the Hulkster got his.
He got his time. And I mean, listen, regardless, again, we're not going to beat a dead horse, but regardless of what you think of him, this place was going fucking nuts for the Hulkster.
Boy, were they.
They were going nuts. And I will say, the thing I remember most about this segment that I watched literally 12 hours ago, Hulk Hogan needed to clear his throat so bad, and he kept trying, and it kept getting stuck. And I was like, "Hulkster, just take the mic away and just clear your throat, bud. It's okay. Do it into the mic. At this point, do it into the microphone. I don't mind. You can do it. You don't have to hit that mute button at all."
Hulk Hogan, he could have spit in the mic. People wouldn't have cared at that point.
They were just bowing. They were going crazy for the Hulkster.
We did see another big Hogan real quick. Sorry to interrupt.
We did.
Another Hogan was there.
Don't worry.
Brooke, of course, was shown immediately.
Brooke Hogan will be talked about on this podcast quite a lot because she has a lot of infamous moments in TNA. But Brooke Hogan was shown. She's gone crazy for her dad. Boy, have times have changed because they don't talk at all anymore. But boy, have times have changed. But it is so weird. So I'm going to talk about the Hogan promo before anyone else gets involved because it was weird. Because at the very beginning of this, I was like, he's here to change TNA for the better. He's going to make sure young guys get an opportunity. And like, if you don't, if you're not good on the mic or you're not, good in the ring, go up north. He was saying shit like that. I was like, what? Yeah. And then the promo kind of like turned heel without, it was weird.
It was like promo.
It was like sentence to sentence. He was like, "I love the fans and the Hulkamaniacs." But so Sean and Scott try to like jump the barricade. The security's like, "No, don't come in. You don't work here." And Hogan was like, "Hey, Jack, let him in." So they come in, and then the thing that Hogan just kept saying over and over is it doesn't work like that anymore.
My God.
It doesn't work like that. And I was like, they haven't done a very good job of explaining what doesn't work. Like, we all just are meant to
Right.
know. Like, that at that point was what? Nitro, WCW had been out of business for 9 years. The hot of the NWO was like 13 years ago. But like, he just kept saying that over and over again. And it just got really messy. It got messy. I'm not going to be disrespectful at all. Rest in peace, Scott Hall, but he was not in a great state in this.
I have noted that on here as well.
He was not looking great. It was not a good time, I don't think, in Scott Hall's life. Sean Waltman was doing fine. He seemed to be okay. But Scott, oh man, it was rough. But they just kept stating that over and over and over again. It's not going to work like that anymore. And he's like, and then they were like, I don't know. I was like, are they teasing tension? Like, this is going to be like, Hogan's going to be like the almighty babyface. Like, I'm doing the right thing, for the business. And these guys are coming in to be like, hey, Hulk, you're still like the politicking guy, all of that kind of stuff. That's where I thought they were going. And honestly, at some point in the promo, it was going in that direction. And then it just fucking went to hell in a handbag. It just went fucking crazy.
So confusing.
It was so fucked. Confusing. And it was long, by the way. This promo at this stage, by the time they got in the ring, it was like at least 6 to 7 minutes. And then it went longer. And then when you think it was over, they kept saying the same thing. And then Kevin Nash came out first, I should say. Big, sexy Kevin Nash. And then again, it was just more of the narrative of it's not going to work like this anymore, brother.
I have here, I think I literally have a counter of Hulk Hogan saying a term of it's not going to work or to grow up 14 times. I have on here, by the way.
That doesn't surprise
some.
And then 16 times he tried to clear his throat in between those sentences too.
Oh, it's just hawk a loogie at that point. No one gives a shit.
Yeah, like it's going to make because especially because Hulk Hogan has a very distinctive sound. Raspy. Yeah, and he has like it's like, that's Hulk Hogan when he speaks. Right. Like, but when it sounded like he just like blew his nose and then come out, he didn't quite get it all up.
Right.
And that was the thing that made me laugh throughout this whole. He's like, "Hey, Jack, God, Jack," and I was like, "Okay, brother, like just spit onto the microphone at this stage. I don't care. Just you need to clear it because you're like." You could tell within his speech he was trying to like clear it, and it wasn't working.
He was like, "Hey, how are you?" He was trying to just continue the promo mid.
I was like, this idiot, come on, just do this, like just get it out. But Kevin Nash came out here. He just said more of the same bullshit. Really, it was just like basically like. They were just the band, the band. We need to get the band together and do the, blah, 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 blah. Really, the promo, I want to say picked up, but it got even weirder when Eric Bischoff came out to a massive reaction, by the way.
Yeah, bigger than Jeff Hardy's at first, genuinely.
They went fucking nuts. Like, who the hell? Also, man, I know it's been 15 years, but Eric Bischoff has aged a lot.
Oh, he looks like he's 168 now.
Holy shit. Hogan, he kind of looks the same.
He's always looked old, though.
Yeah, and I mean, he has the gimmick on it all stage. Like, you can kind of, what I mean? He's kind of, but man, Eric, I know it's normal to age, but jinkers, like, I don't know what age Eric Bischoff is now, but I would say he's probably 50 in his 50s.
There, you mean?
Yeah, he would.
Yeah, probably. Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, early 50s.
Something like that. But Bischoff comes out, and this is where it starts to even go crazier because they start talking about formats and they start talking about producers, and I'm like,
he rips it up.
I'm like, what is going on? Why are we talking about formats? It's like, what? Like, this is like, I'm not saying like, what kayfabe is, what it is, but I'm like, this is just weird. Why are we doing this? And I don't remember, I guess, I mean, it becomes clear throughout the show. And again, it's a bit hard to tell when you're not, it's not actively happening now, but I don't remember Hogan beforehand coming in with like, I'm running TNA. I don't remember that being a narrative.
He says something later on, which we'll get to, that kind of says that, but no, he didn't say. I don't remember that at all either.
I don't remember because it's
the lead up or today.
Like it's even on screen established that like even though she's not a character at this point, Dixie Carter is the president of TNA. Like, she runs
Because
TNA.
they show her as well, and I think there might even be either TNA says it or there's a graphic that says president.
Yeah, also, every time they cut to Dixie Carter, she was emoting a different emotion. At first, she was happy. Then, like, they would promote, and it looked like she was about to cry. But then she was cheering, and I was like, what the fuck is going on in this segment?
It's like she had a cue to, like, cry. She's like, like, smile.
Like, they were just like, even she was confused. It was her fucking company, and she was confused of, like, where are we going with this segment? Are you meant to save TNA, or are you meant to harm it? I don't know what the hell. A lot of people look back from a storyline perspective and just from, like, a business perspective of, like, this was the day TNA kind of started to dip. I mean, this is the highest rated Impact to this day. Like, it's never done a bigger rating. So, you know, say whatever you will, but I mean, it brings in ratings. But I mean, I watched TNA throughout this time. I stopped watching it so just for a timeline of where I watched from about 2007 to like 2014. And from like this point in 2010, when Hogan came in, I think he left in about 2012, 2013. A lot of people say that it dipped a lot. There was still a lot of good stuff in that time. I still remember a lot of stuff in that time. But I think the narrative was when Hogan and Bischoff came in, it became WWE 2.0 even more than it was previously.
Yeah, again, I didn't watch it much back then, but rewatching it, I should say, and so I have all that WWE information like in my head from watching WWE. I was like, this kind of seems very similar.
Yeah, and it's not only that, that segment in particular seemed like a WWE segment of that
super
time.
WWE segment.
It just kept going on and on and on too. I don't know did you clock it at all? Because I didn't clock it of how long it went, but it was long.
No, but I think it was about 20 minutes.
Yeah,
25.
Yeah, it was long, and I thought about it a lot. I still don't technically know what it was about. I have no idea.
I have almost 1,400 words of notes, and I'd say almost half of those are on this segment. I still don't know what the hell I watched, to be honest with you.
Like, when he ripped up the paper,
and then he hands him a new one. And then he handed him a new one.
Yeah, I think when he said the word format, my brain checked out of the segment. I was like, I have no fucking idea what this is about at this stage.
I think he was forcing himself to, like, kill kayfabe. Like, hey, we have a rundown, everybody, in case you don't know. So I'm just going to rip this shit up and give him a new one.
This is so weird, too, because this is going to come up a lot in a lot of the episodes and pay-per-views that we watch. They did this story of, like, the TNA sucked story. Like, this company sucks. Let's fix it story a lot. I'm like, you're just shooting yourself in your own foot of, like, telling everyone that your company sucks, let's fix it. And they just did that story a lot and making Dixie just seem like an absolute buffoon of a president. Like, they just made it look like a moron constantly. But I mean, whatever. This segment ended. That's all that mattered at that stage. At that point, I was
started cheering after that as well.
Yeah. What the hell happened after this?
Again, unless anything was cut, we had a women's knockouts tag title match. Oh, they didn't say women's, just knockout tag title match. Awesome Kong and Hamada beat Taylor Wilde and Sarita. Yeah,
I actually thought this match, for what it was pretty good.
Second longest match on the card at 5 minutes.
That's crazy. Well, that's crazy. Because watching this with the amount of short matches on it, I thought this match went for about 10 minutes. So there you go.
It seemed like a half an hour, compared to the...
It got a commercial break in it. So, and this was the showcase of what I remember about the knockouts of being, like, very different from WWE at the time. Because, I mean, I have a lot to say about Taylor Wilde because I think she's probably the most, like, wrong generation of woman in this business perhaps ever. She's just so good. I know you probably haven't seen a lot of Taylor Wilde, but Taylor Wilde was fantastic and just, you know, she got a lot of opportunities in TNA to be great and she really seized a lot of them. But just, you know, it was still a different time. You know, women were still women in North American wrestling and, you know, no matter how much opportunity they were given or not given, it still was a different time. But Taylor Wilde and Sarita were the Knockouts tag team champions going into this. There was a cool spot that they did that I had noted on my little notes, my very brief little notes, is that they did like a suicide dive crossbody spot and they hit it. It was like timed perfectly.
Yep, it was
I
beautiful.
thought it looked dope. Hamada, I don't really remember too much about Hamada, but she was pretty great too. And then you had Kong. Kong was over. She was the force. I think even for you, CJ, not knowing TNA, you probably knew who Awesome Kong was because you were like, well, that's just different to what anything is offering at this stage. And obviously her matches with Gail Kim and everything we'll speak about a lot. But Kong and Hamada go over with a pretty cool fucking finish too.
The spinning back fist and then the missile drop kick at the same time. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
I was like, yep, cool. I'm into this. For what it was, I thought this match was pretty good.
It was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. Especially, like you said, considering the rest of the actual matches, other than the main event, which we'll get to, easily match of the night.
Yeah, I was like, this is a 5-star classic compared to what we've just had.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine. I don't really have too much to add other than that suicide dive spot. That looked cool.
Well, we get another segment with the beautiful people, and someone unfortunate does show up. I'll let you dive into that part.
Hell yeah! We got more. They have taken off more of their clothes. So obviously they're losing some of these women. I think
not very good at poker. By the way.
I think they all had lost their shirts at this point.
Yeah.
They're all just sitting around, and then we get a little interesting person walking in. But I think it would just be fair that if we follow the rules of their segment, we cannot say his name because they didn't say his name. So. I
have no idea who it was.
A person wearing a towel that may have been in a previous life a porn star. May have been in this segment or not. The first thing that I noted about this, I was like, man, I'm taking away all personal feelings and his views on the world into account here. But why was this old man hanging out with these young women in a towel? Because at that stage, I mean, it wasn't like he was in the shape of his life.
This is not the prime version of
I don't think, at this stage, what, 40 he would be? Probably.
Easily, I would say.
I don't think 40-year-old, whoever this man was going to rock 22-year-old Lacey Von Erich's world.
No.
Just saying. I mean, Lacey Von Erich, again, personal opinion aside, from an aesthetic point of view, probably is doing fine.
Oh, yeah, I would say so. And again, we don't know who this guy was but he looked like he might have been a lot nicer looking at a younger age.
Sure. Also, the only other thing I have to note of this segment, because he's like, I'm already at a disadvantage because I've just showered and I'm just wearing a towel.
Yeah.
Velvet Sky, like, as they're cutting away from this segment, is pulling off his towel with her finger.
Yeah, she's like that in the back. Yep.
Like, he needs to just get his dick out at this stage. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
like, what the fuck?
I did notice that.
Oh, and don't worry, friends. It's not the last time we're going to talk about this segment because they have more in this show.
They sure do.
What's up next?
Mick Foley still can't find his way inside of the impact zone. Well, he's in now, but not in, if that makes sense.
He's in.
And then we get
the way that they did a lot of segments like this. So you had to kind of, the way they did it is you could either pull up to the back of the impact zone and there was like a door, obviously guarded. Well, not guarded. They had like event people. I don't really know what the fuck they were, but they had like people there, or you had to go through security to get into the impact zone. That's how that did. So he's at he's obviously can't get through security because he tried earlier. So now he's going to like the back door, I guess, of the impact zone. And they're like, we're sorry, Mick, we like you, but we can't let you in. Like they've said no, like whatever. So he's still trying to get in to the impact zone. I don't have anything to add.
The Nasty Boys show up.
For whatever reason, the Nasty Boys are here. And they also are not allowed in. Because they're like, we're friends with Hulk Hogan. And they're like, no, you can't come in here. And I'm like, why?
So why are they there?
Why are they there? But also, why can't they just go in? Like, if you know anything about Hulk Hogan, Brian Knobs is one of his best friends. Like, he was on his reality show. Like, why are these event stuff like, no, you can't come in here? I'm like, why?
This is
What threat
one of the
is the
funnier
Nasty
episodes of
Boys?
wrestling I've watched.
What threat is the Nasty Boys presenting TNA? I mean,
Apparently a big one. Let's be honest.
I was
here.
so confused. I'm like, what?
I forgot that he was like, I knew he was his friend, but after seeing it, but then in my head I'm like, why the hell are the Nasty Boys here? But then I put two and two together. But yeah, I don't know why they weren't allowed in.
It was fucking weird. I was like, what is happening? We move on though.
This is where the cut match would have taken place, the Matt Morgan and Hernandez match, by the way.
Yeah.
They won in 26 seconds, by the way.
Would have been
Matt
a
Morgan
barn
and
burner
Hernandez
to
beat
see.
Dr. Stevie and Raven.
Mhm.
Shout out to Daphne, by the way,
Love Daphne.
in this.
Scream
She would
Queen.
have been in there.
Yeah.
And then we have our next, third longest match of the night. Desmond Wolfe loses to D'Angelo Dinero, who you may also known as the Pope, right?
Yeah. Elijah Burke
Yeah.
in WWE.
Yeah, Elijah Burke, yeah.
So the Pope, D'Angelo Dinero, he beat Desmond Wolfe, who most people will know as Nigel McGuinness.
Right.
Desmond Wolfe, I remember him coming into TNA and all of that. And again, I was young. I didn't know like the indie scene. I didn't know that wrestling existed outside of WWE and TNA. I did not know that it was a thing. But he was obviously Ring of Honor. You know, he was the guy in Ring of Honor along with like Bryan Danielson. Everyone knows Nigel McGuinness. I don't need to give you his resume, but I remember him coming into TNA and everyone like they had a lot of stock in him. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. It didn't go that way. Obviously, things happen, you know, medically and stuff like that as well. But he was feuding with like Kurt Angle at stages. Like they had a lot of thing on him, and it just didn't really work out. But he lost to Pope here. I have my notes in front of me, and I have no notes about this match.
Dinero hit a Vader bomb, which got a 1.5 count.
Of course.
Desmond Wolfe went for his finisher, the Tower of London, and then Dinero rolled him up with a small package for the 3 count. That's my notes on that.
Awesome.
Great match. It happened. That's something that happened.
How long did it go for?
About 4.5 minutes.
So it was nearly as long as the Asylum.
It was at least about a 40-minute Iron Man match, according to the rest of the show.
Jeez Louise, yeah. Wonder why I thought that knockout tag went for way longer than it did, because, wow.
No, less than 6 minutes. We do have another arrival, though, Josh. A big arrival coming up here. Jeff Jarrett is in the arena now.
My world. That was Jeff Jarrett is just TNA to me in just every sense of the word. He just,
me too.
I mean, I don't really. Jeff Jarrett it's always weird for me with Jeff Jarrett because he obviously started before I was watching wrestling in WCW and WWE. And then he went to TNA, and obviously I had like a affiliation with him there. But I was always just neutral towards him. He was just like, I didn't hate him, didn't love him. He was just a part of TNA. But man, I don't know if it's just, maybe it was just the nature of this show and what we've seen with the other segment and stuff like that. But I think he's a great promo.
He's a great. We see him again later, so let's save the promo. Actually,
true.
We do see Rhino laid out backstage, and then another absolutely random person showing up here. Who showed up, Josh? If you remember.
Oh my God, who was it?
Another one of Hulk Hogan's now former friends.
Why am I blanking? I don't have it written down.
Bubba.
Oh, right, of course.
Unbelievable night here.
It was fucking
Bubba the Love Sponge.
Bubba the Love Sponge. I was like, wait, what? Also, I should note, in the Knockouts tag match, didn't they show Motor City Machine Guns laid out?
I believe they showed someone laid out. I believe it was them. I don't have that here.
I believe it was the Motor City Machine Guns were in the Knockouts tag, and they've cut to the screen, and they were just knocked out.
We see more laid out later as well.
But yeah, Rhino was knocked out, and then Bubba the Love Sponge is here.
And he says, in very like corny cartoon fashion, "I'll get to the bottom of it," and then we just stopped that segment. That's all we saw.
That you want to? I watched this again 12 hours ago, and it's erased from my brain. Erased.
Yeah. Well, you forgot who it was already.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's another one of Hogan's random friends, like the Nasty Boys, just showing up because Hogan's there. We then see World Champion AJ Styles, with Hogan, or excuse me, saying he loves that Hulk Hogan's debuting. He can't wait to take the company to new heights. And he can't wait to beat Kurt Angle at Jet, because this main event, just spoiler alert, was originally planned for Genesis, Josh.
Kurt Angle and AJ Styles for the TNA World Title. TNA champion is AJ. This is probably their 600 match at this point, and all 600 of them were phenomenal. No pun intended.
Hey, phenomenal. There you go. And then we got a interruption from Mr. Bischoff, who says, actually, we don't like Genesis. You're going to defend the title tonight against Kurt Angle.
Because apparently Eric Bischoff is now in charge of TNA, which I still didn't make clear. Charge. They did not make clear. Other than him saying the word format, they did not say that he is in charge of TNA.
Well, Josh, he's clearly in. He ripped up papers and handed the producer another paper. So that, I think the paper actually said, I'm in charge. It didn't even say a rundown for the night.
I don't know what the fuck was going on. It was weird. But yeah, so that is the main event for tonight, which is, again, this show was just hyped as Hogan's coming to TNA. It's going to be on Monday nights. You know, we're going to take the war to WWE. You'd think you would hype up AJ and Angle as your main event, and then you kind of, you don't have to base the show around that, but like, that's the main event. Like, this is what the best, they're the two best, arguably at that point, they're the two best wrestlers in the world, regardless of TNA, regardless of WWE. Like, why wouldn't you hype that up to be like, hey, WWE, screw you. We have AJ Styles and Kurt Angle. But interesting.
Well, you see, Eric Bischoff wasn't in charge before the night, Josh. That's why, because this match was never scheduled.
That's right.
It wasn't on the original run sheet that he ripped up.
So he got the new.
It was on the new one.
The new format's here. So, of course, that was on the new one.
See, now you
very odd.
Exactly.
Very odd.
Mr. Jarrett comes down to the ring now. Back to Jeff Jarrett. He said it's the most historic night in TNA history. He said when he helped found TNA 7 years ago, some people in the company said it wouldn't even last a few months, but now they're still here and they have the biggest star in the history of professional wrestling, Hulk Hogan, signed to the company.
Yep. I guess.
Yep.
I guess. Jeff Jarrett's promo though was he's just really. It's selling TNA hard. I was like sitting there like, yeah,
you could tell
this
there was
going to
some
be the best
to,
type
like,
of TNA.
He really loved it. Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, this is going to be the number one company in the world. Did more than Hogan did. I'm not going to lie, and personal feelings aside, but it did way more of like hyping TNA, like because there was a lot of deterrence with TNA. There was a lot of people being like, this isn't going to last, and here they are. Well, I mean, here they are even to this
still
day.
Now. Right.
They're still in business. I mean, it's not the same TNA as it once was, but like. They're still here. Like, they're running on Monday night. Like, that's not a small thing. Like, it is a pretty big deal, as bad as it was in the end. But
he named some of the best superstars that came through: Styles, Daniels, Samoa Joe. And then he says, but the future is still what is the best yet to come. And then Mr. Hogan comes out and says, Jarrett, and this is where Hogan is now heel, like you said, about for the 8th time tonight. He says that you and Dixie ran the company to the ground, and now me and Bischoff are here to clean up your mess.
I have to interject because there's two things funny about this with Hogan. He appeared on the Titantron with a microphone, and I was like, why do you have a microphone? You're backstage.
Just speak.
But the first thing he said was like, enough with the gaga.
Enough with the gaga. Yep.
I was like, hey, brother.
and then he said, Jarrett and Dixie ran the company to the ground, and now he and Bischoff are here to clean up the mess and save TNA. And then this is where we get a little more clarity. He says Bischoff and himself are now Dixie's new business partners, and Jarrett has no power in Dixie's. He says Dixie is our new business partner, and then he says Dixie no longer has any power. What the hell is that? She a business partner has no power in the company.
And again, they like veered to her, like the camera went to her and she was smiling, and I was like, he said that he now owns the company that you put all this money into. What the fuck? Why do they make her like she is the dumbest person on earth?
You know what it reminds me of, and this is my where Linda was comatose in the chair. That's what it seems like. She's just like she was out to lunch.
Why are you in the crowd just like smiling? You just said that he now runs your company. What is going on?
I ran my company into the ground, and now you took it over, and I have no power. Okay,
great, good. Fantastic. Sign me up. Yay, where do I sign for that? Very odd. I don't really have too much more to say about this promo because it was just like enough with the gaga, you know.
There was just one more line where Hogan says, Jarrett's now no more than a wrestler, and he needs to lace his boots up, and he needs to be ready whenever the hell him and Bischoff tell him to be. And then we're done with that segment.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that happened.
Fantastic.
Let's move on. Foley still cannot get into the impact. I'm about 2 hours into this now. Jeremy Borash is the one that finally allows him into the building. And then he tells that he wants to have a sit-down meeting with Hulk Hogan. So he's finally in at least about 10 minutes left in the show, it seems like. But he is in. And then we have our co-main event of the evening, which lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds.
Long one.
Between Samoa Joe and Abyss.
Crazy.
Which Samoa Joe goes over in.
That them two are just on this show, and it's just...
Less than 4.5 minutes.
It's nothing. I mean, they're two of TNA's most noted stars of that era. Abyss and Samoa Joe. Even people that didn't watch TNA probably knew who Samoa Joe was. They probably knew who Abyss was.
I knew who Abyss was more than I knew who Samoa Joe was back when TNA was was happening.
I feel like there was always a lot of like rumor and innuendo that Abyss is WWE made. He's going to go to WWE.
He's Kane. He's Abyss.
Yeah,
he's TNA's Kane.
Yeah, like they were always like he's going to go to WWE at some stage, and obviously he does. Right. He works for them now, but like I mean, he never wrestled as Abyss or anything like that in WWE. But it's just I just found that very. I actually thought for the match and the length it wasn't bad by any stretch of the words. Like
they put a lot into it.
Yeah, they put a lot into it. Man, Joe still wrestles the same. It's kind of crazy.
You could have copied and pasted. You could have used AI to make Samoa Joe look exactly how he does now, but the moves exactly the same.
Yeah, crisp and just one of just very good at what he does. But yeah, he wins with the rear naked choke, Coquina clutch. Yep. And the way Abyss tapped out was cool. I liked it.
Yeah, it was. We have a great segment that you'll love here because you're a big fan of Bischoff and the rundowns, the sheets. Mm-hmm. He's now making a new rundown for the third time. So I guess the one.
By the way, this show is very close to being over, and he's still writing a rundown for this show, which is fucking crazy.
There is 2 segments left in the show, and he's writing the rundown. So that's exactly how you want. There's actually another guy that used to run a wrestling company that used to do the same. But Crystal is back, Josh.
Crystal
what did
Ashley.
she have to say?
She was like, did you see that segment, that promo with Bobby and I? Like, Bobby wants his release from TNA. She wants a meeting with Hulk Hogan. And Eric Bischoff is like, get a ticket and join the line. And maybe stop with the attitude because that doesn't work with Hulk Hogan. He basically just didn't fucking care that she was talking to him, really.
No. If you told me kayfabe-wise he didn't know who Crystal Ashley was, I would absolutely believe you. He has no idea
who didn't know who Crystal Ashley was.
Idea.
No idea.
He's like, how do they let a fan back here?
He was like, I don't care about you, lady. Go away from me. Also, I did find something funny at the very beginning. He's like, do you want a mint? I was like, did you just say it breath smells?
You should have offered Hulk something when he couldn't clear his damn throat. Offer him a damn candy or something.
What the fuck? Eric, you're meant to be his best friend.
Son of a bitch. He was too busy writing the rundown, though, probably.
That's true. Or ripping it up.
With 10 minutes left in the show.
I have no idea why he was still doing that, but whatever. But that segment, at least for this rest of the show, led to absolutely fucking nothing.
We didn't see Crystal or Lashley the rest of the evening.
No.
Beer Money is now knocked the hell out backstage, and Mr. Bubba returns, and he says, I'll figure it out, and we just end the segment exactly the same with 2 different people instead.
I'm just going to say this out loud. I'm so happy when I read the news that Awesome Kong smacked this guy in the fucking head, because he deserved it.
Yes, correct. He is such an idiot. Bubba, we see a third time, lets the Nasty Boys in for the first time of the evening. And so what do you think about the Nasty Boys getting in there, Josh?
Well, finally, they can go see their buddy Hulk Hogan.
By the way, these people are entering the arena. Bischoff's writing the rundown. 8 minutes left in the show.
Yeah,
all this happening.
The main event is the 3 count is happening as we speak. What the fuck?
They hear the bell ring as they walk in.
I'm like, why would you want to get into a show that's got 5 minutes left?
I have no idea. We see Kurt briefly saying, hyping up the main event tonight. And then we see Jeff Hardy again, Josh. With Shannon Moore this time, receiving envelopes. What do you think were in those?
Who knows? At that stage in that, I don't know what was in those envelopes, but whatever.
And then we had some young kids freak out because Jeff Hardy handed them a painting, so that was fun. Probably would get the same reaction now if he handled a couple of little girls a painting. By the way, they would lose their minds.
Couple little girls, couple of little Joshes right now. I would be going fucking nuts if Jeff Hardy handed me a painting. I would start. I was like, holy shit, it's Jeff Hardy.
And one more quick thing before the main event, finally, the Nasty Boys just beat the shit out of the Dudley Boys' locker room. They just trashed the hell out of it.
Sorry, that's
Just for
Team
no
3D to
reason.
you. Team
Oh, I
3D.
apologize.
They're in
That is on me.
Japan because I guess they were
I
wrestling in New
apologize.
Japan at that point. I don't
Yeah,
fucking
I
know.
think so, yeah.
They were in the Tokyo Dome where the Nasty Boys were just spray painting the word nasty. Also, I
Yeah,
did find something funny is that I don't know if it was Brian Knobs. It might have been Knobs. I don't know, but he pushed the locker down onto his own baggage.
It was him. Yes, he just destroyed his own shit.
I was like, interesting choice there, but good for you. Also, they did say they said Bubba Ray Dudley, but then he said Bubba Fat Dudley or something like that.
Bubba Fat Ass. Or something
I was like, what the fuck? It made me laugh.
Mirror, by the way. I was looking in the mirror there.
Yeah, well, honestly, but at least they spray painted the word nasty onto the walls.
Did. Because you really don't know who did that at that point.
And then
Bubba would have no idea who did that.
Yeah, and then obviously when they see the word nasty, they'd be like, the Nasty Boys, of course.
It's noted when I had to look this up just to see what happened between that. Spoiler alert. They fought eventually. The Dudley Boys won in 3 minutes when they fought, by the way. When they fought the Nasty Boys. Excuse me, Team 3D.
Obviously, that's going to be an episode we obviously cover on the show.
Spoiler, that's the next episode's topic, by the way. The Team 3D versus the Nasty Boys. It's time for our main event, Josh. What did you think about AJ Styles retaining his title over Kurt Angle?
I mean, there's never a time where I won't watch these two and enjoy it because Kurt Angle was in unbelievable shape. I was like, holy shit, this dude is yoking at this stage. I was like, holy, I was like, oh my God, I was scared of him. I was like, if he come at me, I would be frightened. Like he was, I couldn't imagine Kurt would be a great person to be around at this time either. So I wouldn't want to double cross him because he will hurt me. But he come out and he looked fucking ready. He was like, fuck.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Then AJ Styles, that music, oh, it's so nostalgic. Get ready to fly, baby. I just knew as soon as this bell rung, I was like, I don't care if this episode has been what it's been. They're going to get however long they get, and it's going to be good. And it was good. I'm not saying it was their greatest match they've ever had. They've had better matches. But my God, they did what they needed to do. There were so many kickouts in this, like the amount of like ankle locks, and Styles clashes, and springboard 450s. Also noted that he went over with the springboard 450. I guess
he did. He hit his. Oh, sorry.
Well, he hit it twice, but I mean, like, I think in my brain, I'm just so used to the WWE AJ Styles because it's been 10 years now that I'm so used to just winning with the forearm or the Styles clash. But like, I actually do kind of remember him winning a lot with the springboard 450. Because you're not like a TNA, obviously you've watched it like you said, but like, how do you feel about the 6-sided ring?
That's the one thing I can get nostalgic about from watching old episodes of TNA. So that is like when you talk about the music, the old guys' theme, stuff like that. So I just enjoy it no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, I have, it's very them. I know a lot of wrestlers have said they hated it because it was like,
they hated it
a lot more because there was boards in different places and it was like so much tighter. So it just the bumps hurt a lot more. But it is very like them. It's very there's something about it when you see it like that's TNA. Obviously Hogan and Bischoff come in and it changes not too long after this that they go to a 4-sided ring. But there is something about seeing AJ Styles hitting a springboard 450 in a 6-sided ring on Kurt Angle that's like, oh, this is right.
That's very TNA.
Also, I know a lot of people are like Kurt Angle's WWE, but I'm like, he spent more time in TNA than he ever did in WWE. Like, he had more years in TNA. So to me, he was always just a TNA person. I know that's weird, but like, I watched him more in TNA than I probably did in WWE because those were the prime years of him being there. But I thought this match was good. It would have been nice if this just was like, this was the segment at the end of the show, but it didn't.
We can't end it on that, Josh. It's about Hulk Hogan, damn it. All right.
Of course. He was coming to TNA. He was coming to the Impact Zone for the first time ever.
I don't know if we mentioned that. It's his first time in the Impact Zone.
This is actually his first time on the show.
And it's not his 13th.
Enough with the
AJ
enough with the Gaga.
No, and I don't think he cleared his throat more than once in this segment. Thankfully,
he obviously went behind after his other 8 segments. He was like, "All right, it's time for me to clear my throat." Yeah.
He congratulated AJ. We see Foley as well. He finds Eric Bischoff's office, though. However, Nash, Hall, and Waltman come in, beat his ass. They say, oh, by the way, everybody that's been backstage, we've beaten their ass as well. Hulk Hogan comes in. There's his former. You have no idea if they're friends of his anymore at this point. And then we just kind of taper off into the abyss and shows ends.
Mm-hmm. It was a very weird ending. I'm like, this is the angle we're going with in this new land of TNA is the NWO, the band, versus.
But we're not fully sure if they're even together because they've gone back and forth about 6 times in the show on if they like each other or not. But
an unestablished alliance of the band versus
correct
Mick Foley in 2000,
very current
2010.
Putting over the new stars. Hulk Hogan began his first promo in the ring, by the way, tonight, saying he can't wait to put over and see the new talent, by the way. And this is how they're showing it with a bunch of new talent. Is in Scott Hall and Mick Foley.
Mm-hmm.
Noted young talent.
All right. Well, very weird ending. You know what? It's weird because this episode is so nostalgic and it's so just like infamous in the TNA catalog. It's not great.
Oh, it's horrendous if I had to put a word on it. And it would have been fine. Let's end it on AJ after a great match. Just celebrate with the title. See you next week. We'll have the Hulk Hogan bullshit again next week. Move on.
Yeah,
nope.
It was just, I understand for what reasons it was, but like it was just very much centered on Hogan and that and wanting to do that again. And it was just, why are we doing this? You know, why are we doing this? I don't really know. But it was what it was. I didn't think it was like the worst thing I've ever watched. I've watched worse.
No.
But, you know, if the AJ match was not on there, goodness gracious, that would have been something hard ass. I would have not been into that at all. But, you know, it was what it was. It was TNA on a Monday night, which is really not something we ever thought we would ever see. No. Ever. And it reignited the Monday Night Wars. I'm sure we'll probably cover some of the TNA on Monday Night era here on this show as we move along. But in January 4th, 2010 will be a wrestling date we never will forget, whether you think of TNA or you think of the WWE side of things. Maybe we'll do a bonus episode one day on this show where we cover the WWE side of this, of what was happening on January 4th. But, you know, you have Hulk Hogan reuniting the NWO and you have Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart reuniting on this episode of Raw. Truly is 1997. And that's crazy.
No, it's 2010, actually, Josh. It's 2010.
Yeah, well.
2010.
We'll see how that goes for them. But oh man, it was I think the reason I did this first is just because like it's just very like it's the biggest episode of Impact ever in a sense. It's certainly not the greatest. There is a lot that I can think that are better than this episode of Impact, but it was just like this is the perfect way to kickstart this show. But CJ, you can tell people where they can find you if you want them to find you on social media. And all your stuff that you do.
Just find me on Twitter or X at CJFWrites. And follow the Hive. We got a lot of great things coming.
Including more shows with you. You're going to hear a lot of CJ's voice because obviously JPJ and CJ are going to be doing the Swarm on Wednesdays and Fridays. You're going to get iNTACT every Monday here. You can follow me at JoshRobertson_00 on... I'm not calling it. It's still Twitter to me. Twitter. Well, that's if, by the way, by the time this airs, Twitter may have exploded because it doesn't work at all. Ever. No, so it may not be a thing. So you can follow me pretty much everywhere though. JoshRobertson_00. You can follow The Hive at The Hive_media pretty much everywhere across the board. Watch us on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Wherever you get your socials, you can get The Hive. Go and follow us on Blue Sky, whatever you want to do. But you can catch us here next Monday with more iNTACT. And please support The Hive. All right, friends. Have a good day.